December as the Baltimore Ravens play their 12th game of the year and escape at 7-5, and lo and behold, 3 wins in a row. We have ourselves a real football season. Luke Jones was on the scene, as was I, including the locker room cleanup after the game and the incredible loss of Jimmy Smith. But amidst all of that, Luke Jones, we have salvaged ourselves a season here as you and I head off to Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, there's nothing more you can ask than having a football team that is playing relevant games in the month of December, and you want to be in good position. You don't want to be in a position where you're looking at the scoreboard constantly. You need 3 or 4 different teams to win or lose, whatever the scenario might be. And the Ravens have played well enough, and the rest of the AFC wildcard contenders have been mediocre or bad enough to put themselves in a position where they really control their own playoff fate here over the final 4 games. It's a very reasonable schedule. We know the task of going to Pittsburgh on a Sunday night is not going to be easy, but the good news for the Baltimore Ravens, having won against the Detroit Lions on Sunday, they don't have to go to Pittsburgh thinking that is a must-win game. Sure, you want to play well, and if they win and if the Steelers lose a couple more games here, maybe we're talking about a miraculous conversation about a division title, but long way to go for that. At the very least, the Ravens at 7-5, I mean, they are sitting pretty now as far as their playoff hopes are concerned, as long as they win the games they're supposed to over this final month.
All right, well, let's start with the offense. I mean, we'll get to the defense, and we've talked a ton about the defense in glowing terms here through the 3 shutouts and, pressure and all that good stuff on Stafford. Stafford leaves the game injured at the end and all that. But this, if this team does anything, if we're getting on a bus to go to Pittsburgh or going to Foxborough 5-6 weeks from now for a second-round playoff game, or even going to Jacksonville or L.A. or Kansas City or, Nashville, wherever it's going to be, the question has been about the offense, and the question is this offense good enough to do anything against a credible defense? And I'll say this, building blocks-wise, it's certainly droves better than it was 6 weeks ago. Now, is it good enough? Is it league average? For one day, for one Sunday, the pieces fell together, and you and I were talking in the fourth quarter privately. It looked like a good football team. It looked like a good football game. It looked like a legitimate National Football League offense, which we haven't seen a lot of that through the first 11 weeks.
Yeah, we haven't, and it was good to see that. I mean, as I said to you, as you alluded to, this was actually an entertaining football game to watch, other than seeing Jimmy Smith be lost for the season. We'll certainly be talking about that as our discussion continues, but it was good to see this offense perform in the way it did. I mean, and forget about the fact that Detroit isn't a very good defense statistically. I mean, this is an offense that hasn't done much of anything against anyone, whether you're talking about a top 10 defense or a bottom 10 defense. So for them to go out and, didn't get off to a blazing fast start. They had a couple decent drives early on, but then to really turn things on in that second quarter, and to build a 20-0 lead, and then on top of that, understanding that the defense was going through some adversity with Jimmy Smith going down late in the second quarter, with Matthew Stafford getting red hot, 20 completions in a row, might have been a couple more than that. Never saw the final streak on that.
Looked like Phil Simms in a Super Bowl at one point, right?
Right. I mean, this was, as Eric Weddle alluded to in the post-game press conference, the defense was reeling a bit, and for this offense to not just come back and go 3 and out and punt the ball right back to the Lions, but go down the field, take some time off the clock, get some first downs, and then put some points on the board. That was really important to see. And frankly, if this team's going to not just get into the playoffs, but put themselves in a position where they can actually make some noise, they're going to need more from their offense. Now, it doesn't have to be 37 or 44 points, and it's not going to be that, but knowing that this defense lost arguably its best player on Sunday, it just emphasizes even more that this offense is going to have to do more, and it was good to see it, albeit for one game, one performance. They need to build on it. We said similar things after that impressive win in Oakland about this offense coming to life. They need to build on it, but as far as what we saw in one performance in a game that meant a lot to both of these teams, was really encouraging to see that on Sunday.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke, out on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Compass Point Golf Course in Pasadena. It is the best place to play golf this fall and this winter. The weather has been nice and mild. Sunday wasn't a bad day at the ballpark. There are some days ahead this week where you can get down to Pasadena and let it rip. A great course close to home. It is Compass Point Golf, and you can learn more at compasspointgolf.com, as well as Robert Kennedy, who joins us every week talking a little local college basketball, and I know Luke was down at the Terps game on Friday night as well. Also brought to you by King Discount Liquors. I give the King a ring. I'm fresh out of Malbec from the Thanksgiving holiday. I got to get over there. Lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get over to Rosedale and give the King a ring. That's Paul King and our friends at King Discount Liquors. Luke Jones joining us here to discuss offense. And I'll tell you what, there were a lot of drops there in the first quarter, and as much as this thing was kind of gaudy at 44, it certainly could have been padded even more had Flacco thrown a little in front of Wallace, had Macklin not drop one, had Chris Moore not drop one. I mean, they really had the yips early in this game that did not reflect well upon Flacco, and it kind of got the team off to a slow start, even though they had a 20-0 lead at halftime.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, other than that throw that was behind Mike Wallace on that opening drive, Joe Flacco was exceptional. I mean, this was, in my mind, easily his best game of the season. Threw for a season-high 269 yards, matched his season high with 2 touchdowns, but he looked comfortable. He was in rhythm. They were aggressive on first down. The pass protection was there. And unlike last Monday night against Houston, Joe Flacco was very accurate. And those numbers could have been even better had it not been from some of the drops. And one thing that I liked hearing, and I believe it was Mike Wallace said this, talking to him after the game, he basically said, look, the offensive numbers look good, but we left some plays on the field. I left some plays on the field. And it was good to see that. It was good to see not necessarily a sense of relief, but a sense of, hey, we played pretty well. We picked up the defense a little bit when we needed to, but there's still room for improvement. And they need to have that mindset. I mean, shame on these guys if they sit back on Sunday night and think that they're completely fine because they scored 44 points against the Detroit Lions on Sunday. I mean, this team still offensively has a long way to go, but it was good to see them do what they did. I liked that they remained aggressive. I think it would have been easy for this team having a 20-0 lead at halftime and come out and try to be conservative. Now, the Lions really forced the issue with Stafford getting as hot as he did and the defense struggling without Jimmy Smith on the back end, but they remained aggressive, and I liked the fact that they had that killer instinct. And even with some of those drops, I mean, what more can you say about Joe Flacco? I mean, doesn't validate him compared to so many weeks of uninspiring football, but it just reminds you at least what he's capable of doing when he's playing at his highest level. And certainly if you're a Ravens fan, knowing it's December now, knowing that January is now less than a month away, and that the Ravens, if they handle their business, are going to at least be playing the first weekend of January, that they're going to give themselves, they'll give themselves a much better chance if Joe Flacco can get going. But despite some of those early mistakes, I thought a very crisp, clean performance by the offense, and certainly Flacco leading the way.
And not against Tom Savage or Jacoby Brissett or Brett Hundley, whoever the hell he was, and certainly not Mitch Trubisky, who beat this team 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, now feels like 100 years ago. But, not just a complete effort, not just one at home, but and I don't think the Lions are a great team by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly credible, starting, legitimate National Football League players, and certainly on offense, on the Detroit Lions side, a lot to be contained there as we learned, and they crawled back into the game in the third quarter.
Yeah, there's no question, and that was the thing. I mean, I foolishly picked the Ravens to lose this game, but my final score prediction was 20-16. The Detroit Lions scored 20. So that part of it, I guess I didn't have too far out of whack, although I didn't expect the Lions to get off to such a poor start, and really the Ravens just did a great job taking advantage of some of their early mistakes. But you figured that this was going to be a game, and not even foreseeing what was going to happen with Jimmy Smith, but just knowing that this was a top 10 passing game, knowing that Matthew Stafford's somewhere in, maybe not top 5, but he's certainly in that top 10 to 12 range as far as quarterbacks in this league. You knew that it was going to be a tall order to ask this defense to completely shut down this Lions offense, so you needed your offense to score some points. You needed your offense to come to play. Now, no one would have expected 44 points, and if the Ravens played the Lions 9 more times, I'm guessing they probably wouldn't score 44 points again, but they came to play and they scored touchdowns. They finished off drives. They moved the ball pretty darn consistently.
And they ran the ball. They ran the ball. That was part of what's been missing for Flacco and protecting Flacco. There's a lot that went right, man.
Well, they've run the ball pretty well all year. Let's not act like this has been a bottom 5 rushing offense. I mean, that's kind of the one saving grace that they've had. Now, they certainly ran the ball effectively on Sunday. I'm not saying that wasn't important, but that's kind of been the one thing they've been able to do for the most part this season, even though here of late, before that Houston game on Monday night, they had kind of gone through a little lull with their running game, but it was just balanced. Other than the wide receivers dropping 3 or 4 passes there, this was, and they made some plays too, don't get me wrong, this was as balanced of an offensive effort as we've seen. They were able to run the ball. They were able to throw the ball. They converted some big third downs. They were 4 of 5 inside the red zone, which is something that they've been woeful this year.
They threw the ball to Patrick Ricard, for crying out loud. I mean, they mixed things up.
Yeah.
It was a little multiple, a little varied. I think Woodhead gives them a little something extra to show, if not play at any point. And more than that, all the weapons are in there. I mean, we're not with Michael Campanaro and Chris Moore and Griff Whalen running around right now. And no wonder they stunk 6 or 7 weeks ago when you go back and watch what and Ronnie Stanley not playing at various points. I mean, and Flacco, I don't think Flacco was right in September with his back. He certainly looks healthier and certainly looks like he's got a rocket when he unloads the Mike Wallace the way he did.
Well, it was a good performance. Let's keep in mind, this offense didn't play very well 6 days ago, less than a week ago. So
Let me be excited for a week. It's Pittsburgh week, man.
Hey, don't get me wrong. Hey, the fact that they were able to do this should give you some hope that, hey, it could happen again. Now, if they're really going to make me a big believer that this offense is really starting to figure it out, they'll go to Pittsburgh, and even if they don't win, they'll go to Pittsburgh and they'll show me they can score 24 or 27 points, even if they lose 30 to 24 or 27 to 24. If they can go on the road and do that against the really good statistical Pittsburgh defense, then I'll be a little bit more of a believer. But that said, they played very well on Sunday, and that was really good to see because this wasn't a case, as you mentioned, they weren't playing a backup quarterback or a completely bottom feeder kind of an offense. They were playing a legitimate offensive football team, and as much as the Lions don't have a great defense, there have been plenty of bad defenses that the Ravens have made look pretty good this year. Let's call a spade a spade. So it was encouraging to see that. Again, there's still warts that are probably still going to surface. They could just as easily go to Pittsburgh next Sunday night and lay an egg and score 10 points and lose 26 to 10.
I expect them to lose next Sunday. Now, we're not getting on a plane expecting them to win, right? I mean, not expecting them to win. They might win, but I don't expect that at all.
Yeah, and as I said at the beginning of our discussion, they put themselves in a position now where this isn't a must-win. If they had gone to Green Bay and stubbed their toe, and they had come home and lost to they beat Houston, then they lost to Detroit, this team would be in a position where, boy, you need to start winning some football games or this thing's going to be over. You're not going to be able to take advantage of the final 3 weeks of the season. They've done that. They've won 3 in a row since the bye week. And as I said, if their offense can at the very least, go to Pittsburgh and look representative, look like they know what they're doing out there, score some points, and this isn't a defeatist attitude. I mean, we know Pittsburgh-Baltimore is a rivalry that you expect the unexpected, and I'm expecting it to be a close game. Now, I'd still give the edge to Pittsburgh just based on what we've seen to this point, but let's also keep in mind the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be coming off of a short week, and the Ravens are going to be on regular rest as they were the ones that had the disadvantage on Sunday with Detroit having not played since Thanksgiving and the Ravens coming off of a Monday night game. So, I mean, it's sitting right there that they can make it competitive. But like I said, even if they don't win, if they can at least go to Pittsburgh and the offense doesn't put up 37, doesn't put up 44, anything crazy like that, but at least look like you can compete. At least put together a few touchdown drives and be in the ball game in the fourth quarter, and it's not all because of the defense. Then that would give me some significant optimism here over the final few weeks that no, not just getting into the playoffs, but hey, you got a puncher's chance, and doesn't mean you're going to be the favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but then you can start to say, hey, this team might be a little bit dangerous come January. But again, I'm going to have to see more than just what we saw on Sunday, as impressive as it might have been to really dominate for large stretches of that game, and the offense able to put a bow on it after the defense was showing some issues in that third quarter and early in the fourth.
Crazy weapon Tucker is, and we talk about it all the time, and he's the MVP of the team, and we're all, we all feel that way, and you see it anytime you hit midfield as to kicking a 58-yarder or a 60-yarder or whatever. I mean, there was a point at the end of the first half where it's 17-0, and the Ravens had sort of given up for dead. Detroit mismanaged the clock brutally, gave the ball back to the Ravens, punted from in deep, and the Ravens wind up stealing 3 points with 30 seconds left in the first half. I started to see that unfold with 2 minutes left, and I'm shocked that Caldwell didn't know that wasn't a good door opener for them at the end of the half.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing, but I look at it more so, and I've said this to you so many different times about Justin Tucker that I don't know what to say. I don't know what to write anymore. I mean, the guy's the best kicker in the NFL. He's terrific. I mean, how many more times do you say it about it? I can't wax poetics about a great kicker. I mean, I don't know
I agree with you, but I think there's so many times it changes everything about the way the game is managed, because clearly Matt Prater wasn't Justin Tucker on Sunday, right?
Well, that was the point I was getting ready to make. I mean, think about the fact that Matt Prater misses a 44-yard field goal, which Justin Tucker makes that in his sleep. I mean, a 43-yard field goal, actually. And then he misses an extra point. I mean, we're talking about this game early in the fourth quarter when there's just over 10 minutes to go, and Detroit makes it a 7-point game. Boy, if they had an extra 4 points on the board at that moment, that's a far different ballgame. I mean, you're talking about a very uncomfortable situation potentially if your offense doesn't go down the field and pick up some first downs and score some points for you. So, I mean, it goes without saying how great Tucker is, and Sunday was a really good reminder about that. As you pointed out, the end of that first half, but just the fact that, hey, you don't worry about Justin Tucker missing an extra point. You don't worry about him missing a 44-yard field goal. And on top of that, he can hit a 51-yard field goal to make it a 10-point game with just under 7 minutes remaining. I mean, that's a pretty good weapon there. There are some teams, and most kickers in the league would probably try a 51-yarder there, but there are some teams that are taking some pause at even risking a 51-yard field goal in that spot, knowing it's a one-possession game and not wanting to put the opposition on in good field position if you miss it. The Ravens don't even have to think twice there. They send him out there, and they feel pretty good that he's going to make it, and he did in that situation, of course.
He is Luke Jones. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Box Hill Pizzeria. The best crab cakes in Arthur County are up in Abingdon. You know that. They can now be shipped anywhere. One click at boxhillpizzeria.com. And it's not really a pizzeria. It's a crab cakery. I think everybody knows that. Make sure you stop up there, get some salad dressing. Tell Tommy and Chris, if anybody sees them this week, next week, I'm down to my last bottle of salad dressing. I got to make my pilgrimage up there to exit 77. We'll see you up there at Box Hill Pizzeria. It is our favorite crab cakery. Also brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need the right lender. That's Freedmont Mortgage. Buying, selling, considering, maybe refinancing, maybe just need to learn a little bit more. You want to do that at Freedmont.com. They have the Freedmont U up there for you. I'm speaking with Luke Jones. He is Luke at WNST.net, as well as Baltimore Luke, on the scene all week in Owings Mills. We will be in Pittsburgh this week as well. Luke, last thing on the offense, at least for the time being, we're going to meander in and out of all this, and we haven't praised the defense or talked about Jimmy Smith or even talked about what else went on in the league during the day on Sunday. But this, turning the ball over versus getting turnovers, and it's obvious the Ravens ran the score up on the Weddle pick and all that other stuff. But they're not turning the ball over right now. It's been a couple of weeks since Flacco's had a lollipop, awful pick. Collins now is, 10 weeks removed from the bad fumbles, right, that he had at the beginning of the year, and ball security was an issue. We haven't seen one go off a wide receiver's chest protector in a while. I mean, there's been a lot of things that have conspired early that were sort of bad luck or bad passes or bad breaks, bad snaps, holding penalties. That part of it was much cleaner, on Sunday, and it's been getting cleaner, I think, since Green Bay, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, this team, as much as we beat up the offense for how inept it's been, quite frankly, for most of the season, if you look at them, they've been one of the best teams in the league in terms of not being penalized a whole lot. Last Monday night notwithstanding, and certainly they had their issues against DeAndre Hopkins being such a challenge for that defense, but they haven't been penalized a whole lot. I think you go back to that season opening game in Cincinnati where Ryan Jensen had some penalties. The offensive line had quite a few penalties, and they've just steadily gotten better in that regard. And you said it. I mean, a big, major key to this 3-game winning streak, and fully acknowledging that the offense didn't play great against Green Bay, certainly didn't play great against Houston, is they haven't turned the ball over. They have one turnover since the bye week. That was the Flacco interception to Danny Woodhead. They didn't have any turnovers against Houston, no turnovers against the Lions on Sunday. I mean, it's so cliche to the point where when you're trying to break this down and talk about this intelligently as an analyst, as a writer, you almost cringe because, well, no duh, if you don't turn the ball over, you got a great chance to win. But when you're talking about a team that has had such issues moving the ball consistently, but has a really good, sometimes great defense that has been able to take advantage of other teams that turn the ball over, I mean, it becomes so wildly valuable to protect the football. It's not exciting, and certainly no one was watching that Texans game on Monday night or the Green Bay game a couple weeks ago and said, man, this is really entertaining offense to watch. But at the same time, they didn't do anything to significantly jeopardize their team in a football game by throwing it to the other team, by putting the ball on the turf. And as you mentioned, Alex Collins, that was such a narrative in his first couple games with the Ravens, and he hasn't had any issues. And you knock on wood and cross your fingers if you're John Harbaugh that continues, but he's been really good in that regard. And as much as Joe Flacco deserves some criticism, and certainly the other phases of the offense deserve a ton of criticism as well, he hasn't turned the ball over the last couple games. And much as the idea of a game manager or the idea of bringing back memories of Trent Dilfer isn't something that people want to hear when you're talking about a $20+ million quarterback, there's still some value to that. And it was really good to see him be able to make plays in the passing game without turning it over, and the Ravens be able to move the ball so consistently and remain aggressive without being reckless. That's a fine line right there, and I think that's a line that they've had trouble kind of towing, kind of teetering between those two ideas at various points this year, especially when they've been desperate to score points.
Well, Flacco chucks it around. I mean, he threw the ball 36 times, mainly safely on Sunday, right? Literally.
Right. Yeah, and it certainly helps when Chris Moore is streaking over the middle of the field wide open on a big third down in the second half. I mean, that certainly helps when that happens, but he made some good throws, and there were some good catches made, even though there were a few drops mixed in there. And you just like seeing that. You want to be aggressive, but be realistic enough to know that the strength of this team is still its defense, still its special teams. So be aggressive. Certainly don't just try to sit on a lead and be ultra-conservative, but don't do anything dumb that's going to jeopardize points. And the Ravens, since the bye week, that's the best compliment you could pay this offense, at least until Sunday when we saw this offense explode. Really, for its best performance of the season and not really all that close.
All right, we're going to be here all week. You can find Luke anytime, anywhere, out on our Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We're everywhere you are. He's also Baltimore Luke out on Twitter and Luke at WNST.net. Full week of practice and preparation for a Sunday night journey to Pittsburgh. Luke and I will be at Heinz Field as well. You can find me out in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox free of charge at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month, never any commitment. PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, Dennis Colatzos is going to be here on Thursday, driving you home, getting you ready for Pittsburgh Sucks Week. It is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis sponsors our WNST Tech Service. Any breaking news, any more updates, bad news on Jimmy Smith, we'll be talking about that not just all week, but all month and until the season is over around here. But we're going to get up to Pittsburgh, preview this thing full out for you at WNST.net. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.